Never outshine the master. When working under a boss, avoid displaying skills that might make them feel insecure. Always give credit and make them feel superior. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. President Nixon, in his administration, often used rivals who could provide valuable insights or perspective on issues, rather than close friends who might have ulterior motives. Conceal your intentions. During negotiations, don't reveal your true desires up front. Steve Jobs often kept Apple's projects secret, misleading competitors about the company's next moves. Always say less than necessary. Many politicians practice this by giving ambiguous or brief answers, allowing room for interpretation without fully committing to a position. 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. For example, Warren Buffett values reputation above all and refrains from doing business with anyone whose integrity he questions, as his own reputation is paramount. 6. Court attention at all costs. Public figures like Kim Kardashian have mastered the art of using media and public appearances to stay relevant and in the spotlight, regardless of criticism. 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. For instance, Thomas Edison is often credited with inventing the light bulb, but much of the work was done by his employees and collaborators. 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. For example, in diplomacy, powerful nations often set terms and wait for weaker nations to approach them for aid or alliances. 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Instead of arguing, Steve Jobs would create a prototype of the iPhone, letting the product itself win people over. 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Avoid aligning with people who constantly complain or experience misfortune, as their negativity may affect you. For instance, companies often distance themselves from consistently underperforming partners. 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. For example, software companies often lock clients into their ecosystem, making them dependent on their services for long-term support and growth. 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. For instance, con artists often start by being extremely generous or honest to gain the trust of their target before executing a scam. 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. In business, offering mutual benefits and highlighting how the other party stands to gain is far more effective than simply asking for favors. 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. In corporate espionage, companies may send employees to competitors' conferences or events to gather intelligence under the guise of friendship. 15. Crush your enemy totally. After defeating Carthage, the Romans completely destroyed the city to prevent any future threat from arising. 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Celebrities often disappear from the public eye for a time to generate intrigue, only to make a stronger comeback later. 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. For instance, Vladimir Putin often engages in unpredictable political moves, keeping rivals and allies uncertain of his next action. 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Take CEOs, for example. Those who isolate themselves from employees, investors, and critics often become out of touch with reality, making poor decisions that lead to business failure. 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. For example, Steve Jobs once underestimated Bill Gates, dismissing Microsoft. Gates ultimately proved to be a formidable competitor in the tech world. 20. Do not commit to anyone. In politics, savvy leaders often play both sides, making deals without committing fully to one faction, keeping their options open. 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. In poker, a skilled player may initially lose small hands intentionally, only to raise the stakes later and catch opponents off guard. 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. When businesses face overwhelming competition, they may choose to merge with or be acquired by the competitor, gaining a stake in the larger entity's success. 23. Concentrate your forces. For instance, Amazon focused on books in its early days to dominate the niche before expanding into other product categories. 24. Play the perfect courtier. Historical figures like Cardinal Richelieu were masters of court politics, flattering the king and subtly maneuvering their way into positions of power. 25. Recreate yourself. Take Madonna, for example. She has reinvented herself multiple times over the years, staying relevant in the ever-changing music industry. 26. Keep your hands clean. Politicians often distance themselves from scandals by having their staff take the fall for controversial actions or decisions. 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. Steve Jobs and Apple created a devoted customer base by tapping into consumers' emotional needs and desires, making the brand a lifestyle choice. 28. Enter action with boldness. Alexander the Great took bold, decisive action during his military campaigns, which allowed him to conquer vast territories with speed. 29. Plan all the way to the end. Disney meticulously planned its acquisition of companies like Pixar and Marvel, integrating them into its long-term growth strategy. 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Artists like Michelangelo worked hard behind the scenes, but the final masterpieces appeared as if they were created effortlessly. 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. Henry Kissinger, during peace negotiations, often controlled the terms of discussions, forcing opponents to choose between two less favorable outcomes. 32. Play to people's fantasies. Advertisers often sell products by appealing to consumers' fantasies of wealth, beauty, or success, rather than the actual features of the product. 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. During business negotiations, understanding the other party's key weakness or fear allows you to gain the upper hand. 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. Donald Trump, throughout his career, branded himself as a billionaire and real estate mogul, often inflating his status to garner more respect and leverage in deals. 35. Master the art of timing. For example, politicians often release controversial news on Friday afternoons, timing it so that the public's attention is minimized over the weekend. 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. For instance, after being rejected for a partnership, a business might downplay the importance of the deal, acting as though they never needed it. This can, diminish the value of the partnership in the eyes of others. 37. Create compelling spectacles. Take Apple's product launches, for example. These events, which are theatrical and meticulously choreographed, create massive anticipation and buzz for their products. 38. Think as you like but behave like others. Many revolutionary thinkers, such as Galileo, worked within societal norms to avoid persecution, despite holding radical beliefs in private. 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. During negotiations, a business leader may deliberately create confusion or stir conflict to disorient opponents and gain the advantage. 40. Despise the free lunch. Billionaire Warren Buffett avoids businesses or deals that promise easy, fast money, believing that only hard-earned success is sustainable. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. Take Tim Cook, for example. After taking over Apple from Steve Jobs, he carefully crafted his own management style instead of trying to mimic Jobs' approach directly. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. In corporate takeovers, removing the CEO or key founder often leads to disarray among the remaining team members. Work on the hearts and minds of others. Politicians often campaign by winning over the emotional and psychological loyalty of their constituents through speeches, promises, and symbolic actions. 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. You see, in competitive situations, copying an opponent's tactics or style can really confuse them. This, in turn, makes it a lot harder for them to respond effectively. 45. Preach the need for change but never reform too much at once. Politicians advocating for reform often introduce new policies incrementally, rather than making radical changes that could face mass opposition. 46. Never appear too perfect. Celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, despite their success, openly discuss their struggles and failures, making them more relatable to the public and avoiding resentment from appearing flawless. 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. After winning a crucial battle, General Ulysses S. Grant would often refrain from pressing his advantage too far, choosing instead to consolidate his gains and avoid unnecessary losses. 48. Assume formlessness. Bruce Lee's philosophy of being like water reflects this law. In martial arts, he taught his students to be adaptable and fluid, rather than